Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. I am Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics, joined by, of course, Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports. Dick, we're talking about the Class A's now of Section 6, and, of course, the Class A's, 2 divisions, and they're just finished with the crossover games. Got one more left, it looks like, before they head to New Era Field, and those are 4 awesome playoff games, to say the least. Class A is brought to you by PrepStar. Tom Rapisi, give him a call. You know how to find him. PrepStar. Let's start with that West Seneca West Star Point game, because that seemed to be the one that we could see coming with all the injuries to Star Point. We just thought that West Seneca West was going to pull that one out, and they did.
I think that would be, if you take a look at West Seneca West and look at the record that they have in the last 3 years, including the state championship, Mike Pistola and the coaching staff have done an exceptional job. And if you really look at just the defense, when you look at Liam, Sure, Mike Linsky, Dylan Weir, then look at Isaiah Simmons running the ball and what he's been able to accomplish as a sophomore, they're a force to dealt with. And one of the things Mike said at the beginning of the season, it would depend on the culture of his team on how successful. And I think that they've been able to have a wonderful culture. And it'll be just, given that he had an injury to his non-passing shoulder, Liam, hopefully will be, ready to go. But he's a force on the line, but he's also a force carrying the ball. He's so big, and he gets more yardage, I think, sometimes running than he does passing.
Shire was big 2 years ago. I remember, I think it was Francis Beck was down there, and I said, you've got to get a picture of Myers. Get down there to their training camp and just get a picture of Myers throwing passes. And he took a couple of photos, and he sent one to me, and I think we even tweeted out, but it wasn't Myers, it was Shire. And I'm like, look at the size of that kid. I'm like, Myers grow his hair out? Because this kid had pretty long hair. Like, I think he got Shire. I don't think that's Myers. But, yeah, he was big 2 years ago as a sophomore. 3 years ago as a sophomore. And to me, he's one of those kids that I talked about this earlier in the year. He's definitely one of those kids that I really admire because he kind of didn't, squawk about being relegated to backup quarterback. You've seen a number of quarterbacks this year alone that because they were not named the starters left their schools to go try playing quarterback somewhere else, stealing other kids' jobs, so to speak. And some of those kids are out of the playoffs right now, so, it comes back to bite you sometimes. But the big thing is with Shire, he stuck it out. He didn't quit on those kids. He didn't take off for another school in which he could have probably been a starter. He stayed with West Seneca West, and he stuck it out, and he battled hard, and he got that job. He earned that job the old-fashioned way by beating out the competition and not squawking, not having mommy and daddy make phone calls for you. This kid stuck it out, and I take my hat off to that kid. I like West Seneca West. I do. I like them a lot, and I'm not surprised they won this past week. The only thing about that whole game is El Cavanaro is now going to coach his last game stuck on number 99. But I don't think Al would trade that career for anything.
Well, when you take a look, I think it's 19 or 20 years that he's been coaching, and what he brought to the table, just as being a class act, very humble, and very advocating for his team and coaching staff. And it's unfortunate he didn't reach the 100 club. But when you take a look at it, he reached the club that has a lot of credibility and a lot of people admire, and that's sometimes better than the 101.
Yes.
100 win.
I agree. I think he would agree with that. How about that South Park Williamsville North game? The Spartans really gave the Sparks quite a scare.
Well, you mean the South Park?
Yeah.
The Sparks.
Sparks, yeah.
Right. If you look at the seventh game in the season, Williamsville South led South Park 7-6 at halftime, then lost 28-7. I was surprised. If you looked at, asked me what surprises, I thought was the way that South Park has dominated and only beat Williamsville North 14-7. And Tommy Delaney said that they just had excellent game plan, and particularly with their defense. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays up. But when you're looking at who the South Park's going to have to play, Grand Island, who's a team of destiny, who's there on a 4-4 record. But then when you take a look at what's happened on that campus and school, when you look at that Dean Santorio's father passed away in the funeral and wake and everything else going along with the heartache and of that loss to the team, and yet the Vikings, right from Gene Masters decades ago, Dean playing for Gene and also at Edinburgh, and it's almost like it's a team in destiny. So I think that the Sparks better be ready to play, because what Grand Island has, they don't have speed merchants. They've got the kids with big hearts, who just don't know how to lose and just want to be able to make it to the stadium again.
It's been a while. The other game, Class A, Sweet Home McKinley. And McKinley was put to the test by Jeremy Zimmer's crew at Sweet Home. They did they played them tough. Were they not down in that game early, and then Sweet Home made a nice comeback? So it speaks to the resolve of that team. Last year, that Sweet Home team, they would have quit. We saw it against South Park last year. I mean, they were injured, and they just didn't look like they wanted to be there. Here they are, down 14-0 in their first playoff game in quite some time, down to a team that's been beating everybody in A. And for them to come back and claw their way back into that game, it speaks, volumes about the coaching staff there and how much those kids really wanted to win that game. So, again,
Jeremy Zimmer has done a fantastic job, the coaching staff, and then going for two, and a few seconds left, in the game, and not getting there. It really was not well received by some of the Panther fans. But the bottom line is, when you take that you were winless in 2018 and now you made it to the playoffs, that just shows what the character of the kids that played. And Jamal Lucas is just an outstanding player. And then when you take a look at Tyler blocking his wide receiver, he's outstanding. And the Panthers are back. John Fowler smiling.
Yes. And if I was Jeremy, I would have gone for two all day against the team that hasn't lost all year. This was your shot to beat them on that play. They didn't get it done. Sometimes that happens.
At every level.
Yes. So, there's always going to be, armchair quarterback at the end of the game if something doesn't work the way it's supposed to. You should have done this, you should have done that. Either way, anybody that's watches this game for as long as they have would have probably understood, especially if you know how well you want to give McKinley's offense the ball back, you're going to lose all day. So Sweet Home did what they had to do. Hats off to Zimmer and the crew there for having the stones to do what they tried to do. Grand Island beat my Kenmore West Blue Devils on Saturday. I was there for the first quarter of that game, and it was back and forth. Boys is definitely one of the top quarterbacks in Western New York, no question about it. He was fantastic. He scored the first touchdown of the game, a long touchdown run. Ben Mascala of Grand Island's also very good. I think Grand Island just maybe wanted it more collectively, and as you said, they're a team of destiny, so hats off to the Vikings and probably what was the best game of the day, maybe one of the best games of the day.
Boys had almost 397 yards running and passing and throwing for touchdowns, and he has to be one of the top candidates for all Western New York.
No pressure on us. I hear you. All right, so that'll do it for Class A. Well, you know what? Hang on real quick. Amherst. I want to bring them up. There are some games this weekend that we should mention. I know Amherst is playing Wednesday night. West Seneca East is at Will South. That's Wednesday, 6 p.m. That's the Chuck Funky Bowl. But Amherst is also playing Hutch Tech on Wednesday. We haven't talked a lot about these kids this year, and I wanted to make sure we brought their names up. The job that Nick O'Neill's done coming in for Amherst to play quarterback, he's got good numbers. He's a running quarterback, 851 total yards. He's averaging 7.5 yards per carry. He's got 10 rushing touchdowns. But Anthony McCarley, another senior, is perhaps one of the top players in the area. He rushed for 515 yards. He averaged just about 8 yards a carry, had 6 touchdowns, had another 4 touchdowns receiving, 382 yards there. And then defensively, McCarley had 3 interceptions. He also had 3 touchdowns on special teams. Returned 3 kicks. That's a kid that we're going to have to, you should pay attention to. And if you're available Wednesday night, I encourage you to go to Amherst and watch this kid play. It'll be the last time you get to see this kid. So I'll be heading out to Amherst to take a look at that kid with my own eyes because I heard nothing but good things, and that's someone I want to go see. So maybe I'll pick you up.
Well, St. Joe's would have loved to have had him because he transferred from St. Joe's to his senior year at Amherst, and he runs a 4.5 outstanding athlete, and he's like a rocket. So he's got a lot of stats, and he should be also considered for all Western New York recognition.
And they made a nice push to try and get in the playoffs too.
Yep.
They came up with a big win shootout with Kenmore East. They did beat Sweet Home at a time when Sweet Home really needed to win a game. Sweet Home still got in the playoffs, but Amherst did beat them earlier in the year. They beat Albion, and then they finished up with a win against North Tonawanda. Angelo Bibbs, 22 tackles, 6 sacks, and a pick defensively for the Tigers. I'll be coming to see them on Wednesday. So that's what I want to make sure I gave those kids a shout-out. We're going to come back in just a few minutes. Let's hear from one of our sponsors, and we'll go into Class B.